Ladies and gentlemen, we're back for the second panel. Before we start, I would like to introduce to you the moderator for this panel, Mrs. Milena Andreeva, who has been really invaluable for all 3 years of implementation of this project, because she is also not only, our conspirator when it comes to coming up with the whole concept, but also a very, very helpful research mentor who has guided now 3 cohorts of Next Generation Career Fellows. And that is why I'm absolutely sure that I'm leaving you in very, very capable hands when I pass the moderation to Milena. Milena, thank you so much for being with us and for all your contributions to the project.
Thank you very much, Mariana. After those words, I'm quite emotional, so please forgive me. Welcome back to those at the venue and those who are with us online. I would like to introduce to you the second panel for today's discussion, and it's dedicated to the topic of facing challenges together and exploring opportunities for cooperation between Bulgaria and the Republic of Korea. We have a very interesting mix of participants in the second panel. Next Generation Korean Fellows from this year, also last year and 2020. So I'm very much looking forward to this very exciting panel. I'd like to remind to you that you can ask questions and make comments in Slido. The entrance password is 2022 Next Generation Korean Fellows NGKF. So please write your questions in Slido. And as I said, the topics are quite interesting, up to date, very exciting, I would say. And the first, we would like to welcome Veronika Merjanova. She's going to present different successful initiatives for fighting corruption and how to improve the anti-corruption policies in Bulgaria. After that, we are going to welcome Diana Parapanova, who is with us today. She's going to present her policy paper on energy efficiency and finding smart solutions for the resolution of the energy supply crisis. The third topic is going to be dedicated to the challenges of the aging populations that our countries are facing. And this paper is going to be presented by Slavina Vasileva and Janjung Lee. And last but not least, of course, the very important topic of resolving gender clash in Korea by Margarita Kichukova, who is a fellow from last year. So with this, I'd like to welcome Veronika Merjanova. She's online from Korea. She's a recipient of the Global Korea Scholarship by NID and currently pursuing her master's degree in political science in Songgukwan University in Korea. She also holds a bachelor degree in Korea studies from Sofia University and very active participant in different kind of events related to Korea. Her topic is South Korea's successful initiatives fighting corruption, possible interaction with, and improvement of anti-corruption policies in Bulgaria. Veronika, welcome. Please present your paper.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Can you hear me well? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you, Veronika.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Could you please share your screen with the presentation if you have one? Or you would prefer to speak like this?
Yes. Can you just a second? Can you see my screen now? Okay, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to meet you all and to introduce to you my policy paper titled South Korea's Successful Initiatives Fighting Corruption and Possible Interaction with and Improvement of Anti-Corruption Policies in Bulgaria. As we all know, corruption is a problem as old as the mankind, and despite our society's technological, cultural, and economic development, corruption is still a looming problem, and its solution remains a challenge. And as it is a global problem, a global challenge, Bulgaria is also seeking solutions in order to curb corruption and to achieve integrity in public office. And Korea has proven and tested many policies in the sphere of anti-corruption, which in my paper, I argue that could provide exemplary solutions to problems in Bulgaria. And to introduce you to the topic better, I would offer you the information by Transparency International on corruption perception indexes in the two countries. And Bulgaria currently is on the 78th position among 180 countries and is receiving 42 out of 100 points on this perception index, and corruption perception index. And this result has been stuck in the same points from 40 to 43 for the past 10 years. While South Korea has 32nd place in the world out of 880 countries, and it is also receiving 62 points currently out of 100. Which is a significant improvement when you consider the fact that in the beginning of 2000s, Bulgaria and South Korea have had similar scores on the corruption perception index, which means that for these 20 years, South Korea has had enough resources and time in order to develop and test its practices in anti-corruption, and its results are visible in the stable and comprehensive improvement of its score on the CPI index. So in my policy paper, I overview the institutional framework and the legal framework of the Bulgarian anti-corruption system, and I highlight two main problems. The first of them is the large number of institutions that is engaged with anti-corruption in Bulgaria. And namely, these are the Anti-Corruption and the Commission for Anti-Corruption and Illegal Assets Forfeiture of Bulgaria, and also the National Council of Anti-Corruption Policies. These two institutions are responsible for most of the policies and the practices in curbing corruption in Bulgaria. And in particular, the Anti-Corruption and Illegal Assets Forfeiture Commission is responsible of implementation the preventive policies against corruption in Bulgaria and on verifying the information on potential corruption cases, while the National Council of Anti-Corruption Policies is responsible of developing anti-corruption strategies and also conducting inspections and providing external evaluations of the efforts of public administration in Bulgaria in order to prevent corruption. However, the division of these very important responsibilities into two institutions and the engagement of other institutions that also have an important role in fighting corruption in Bulgaria, apart from the already mentioned two institutions, is a prerequisite for, first of all, excessive red tape, which is one of the main problems regarding corruption. And according to experts, reducing red tape is the successful approach in order to curb corruption. And apart from this problem, the large number of institutions consumes time, consumes financial resources, human resources, and also hinders the fast and efficient cooperation between the bodies that are engaged in the process. So for this problem, I recommend that Bulgaria could take a look in the practice in Korea, which is the establishing of the Anti-Corruption and Civil Rights Commission, which is the official anti-corruption body of South Korea. This commission was established in 2008, and it has united the ombudsman of the institution of the ombudsman, the Independent Commission Against Corruption, and the Administrative Appeals Commission of South Korea. Since the establishment of this important institution, the Korean CPI index, corruption perception index, has increased its position significantly, as you can see on the graph. And apart from this, South Korea has offered a convenient way for its citizens in order to address their complaints and appeals, and in order to fight corruption. And last but not least, Korea has reduced its red tape and has created a comprehensive and efficient way of making institutionalized system of fighting fighting corruption. I'm sorry, and I recommend. Actually, after I will tell you exactly what I recommend, but I will now mention the second problem. That is not enough transparency on the good cooperation, evaluation, and assessment of anti-corruption plans in Bulgaria. As I already mentioned, one of the main responsibilities of the Council of Anti-Corruption Policies in Bulgaria is to outline and develop the anti-corruption strategy. And also it has to guide the other institutions in order to create efficient anti-corruption plans. For this purpose, the Council has published guidelines on how to create efficient anti-corruption plans, and also how to put in practice different good practices in order to prevent corruption. However, there is not enough evidence how good is the cooperation between these different institutions and the Council, which provides the guidelines, because there is no information on if there is enough feedback, if there is enough communication between these institutions, and most importantly, if there is an objective external evaluation of the efforts of these institutions. So in order to resolve this problem and to provide more transparency on the process and the efficiency of these efforts that Bulgaria is currently putting into the fight against corruption, I review and present the Anti-Corruption Initiative Assessment of South Korea. This is a tool for evaluating and for disclosing publicly the results of the efforts of different institutions in Korea, which apply anti-corruption policies and anti-corruption measures. And this anti-corruption initiative assessment consists of a rigorous evaluation of their efforts through different indicators, and the combination of qualitative and quantitative analysis. The in particular, the practices that are within the anti-corruption initiative assessment that could be of immense help for the Bulgarian problem are the annual update of the guidelines which the anti-corruption body in Korea provides for the institutions, and also a special workshop that helps institutions and the body that provides the guidelines to communicate, to exchange information and advice, and to receive active feedback from the institutions. This is something that definitely would contribute to the more efficient curbing of corruption in the Bulgarian practice. And also, within the anti-corruption initiative assessment, a very important part is the disclosing of the results and the ranking of the institutions. By this, the assessment provides incentives within the institutions to strive for better rank in order to defend their reputation in the among the citizens and the users of their services, and also in order to increase the credibility in their efforts and in their work. So in preventing corruption in particular. In conclusion, I summarize my recommendations into three main points, into three main recommendations. The first one is the establishment of cooperative relations between the official anti-corruption bodies of Bulgaria and South Korea. I believe this is very important because Bulgaria is currently seeking for solutions as our politicians and also international institutions are addressing actively the problem with corruption in Bulgaria. And South Korea has proved that it is willing to share its knowledge and its know-how in the sphere of anti-corruption, as it is already cooperating in numerous of international projects, including help for Vietnam, for Malaysia, and also for Uzbekistan, and also in Europe. It is cooperating also with Moldova, which means that a possible cooperation between Bulgaria and South Korea in the sphere of anti-corruption by official establishment of relations between our anti-corruption bodies. This would only deepen the friendship between the two countries. It will continue the good cooperation which has started since the establishment of the relations between Bulgaria and Korea in the 1990s. And last but not least, it will confirm the strong political will of Bulgaria and South Korea in contributing to the fight against corruption within the global community. My second recommendation is reducing the number of institutions engaged with the prevention and counteraction of corruption in Bulgaria. And in order to do that, I recommend workshop or a seminar on exchanging experience with South Korea, because as South Korea has managed to unify three very important institutions in one body successfully, and since 2008 until now to improve its integrity and results, I believe that they have accumulated a significant amount of good advice and knowledge on how to do that in a proper way. So such a workshop would be of immense help for Bulgaria to pursue such a direction in its anti-corruption policy, and also to consolidate the Korean position as a country that is successful in fighting corruption. And last but not least, I recommend the adoption of an assessment methodology similar in nature to the Korean anti-corruption initiative assessment system. And that is because in the current situation of the Bulgarian fight with corruption, there is not enough transparency on how well the efforts of each institutions are implemented and how good and stable is the cooperation between the National Council, the Commission of Anti-Corruption, and the relative institutions. So such an assessment would provide more transparency. It would increase the efforts and the initiative of the proper institutions and the teams that are engaged with preparing the plans and implementing the policies. And last but not least, such evaluation would increase the confidence of the citizens in the relative institutions. So such cooperation between the two countries would provide a bridge between Asia and Europe, and it will be one more contribution to the global fight against corruption. It could be of immense help for Bulgaria, which is currently seeking and trying to actively to fight corruption, and it will be of immense contribution to the prestige of South Korea, to its affirmation as a country that has accumulated enough experience and can be taken as an example in order to fight corruption globally. Thank you for your attention, and I hope it was interesting to hear my presentation.
Thank you very much, Veronica. It was indeed very useful to hear your practical and specific recommendations of fighting against corruption, because we all agree that corruption hinders the sustainable development of each country. So really, if we manage to cooperate and establish this link between the respective authorities and somehow implement the assessment methodology that you're pointing out, might have a very good impact over the Bulgarian efforts to fight against corruption on all levels, because your recommendation really touch upon not only the higher level of corruption, but also the petty corruption within our society. So thank you very much. It was a great pleasure to be your mentor, and please stay with us if we have questions. Once again, I remind you that you can ask your questions in Slido, and after that, please stay for the discussion after all the presentations. And with this, I have the great pleasure to welcome Diana Parapanova, who is also this year's Next Generation Career Fellow, right next to me. She's going to present the topic related to energy efficiency and finding smart solutions in the context of the energy supply crisis. Ms. Parapanova holds a bachelor degree in international relations from Sofia University, as well as she's a master degree holder in international and European law from Tilburg University of the Netherlands. She's quite keen in environmental law, energy politics, green transition, so very much looking forward to this up-to-date topic. Please, you have the floor.
Hello to everybody. I hope you can hear me well. Dear guests and panelists, thank you all for being here today and taking your time to participate. As already mentioned, my name is Diana Parapanova and I'm one of this year's Next Generation Korea Fellows. I would like to thank the EPI for organizing the incubator and for giving me the chance to participate, and especially my mentor Yasin Georgiev during this program, who greatly helped me define my topic of interest. I chose to explore the energy efficiency and what kinds of smart solutions can be brought from the cooperation between South Korea and Bulgaria that can contribute and be applied in the context of the current energy supply crisis. The reason why I chose this topic is because energy is now crucial to every country in the world, but especially to Bulgaria and Korea. Worldwide, we are experiencing decreased economic growth, and as you already know, after COVID struck us, the pandemic left some kind of touch to our economic in a negative way. So we managed to get on our feet. But now with the energy crisis that was provoked by the Russian aggression in Ukraine, we are experiencing a second wave of economic repercussions. Those new economic obstacles are really connected with the energy supply Europe was so dependent on. As all of you know, Russia was the main supplier of energy to Europe, and Europe was really dependent on the gas link to Russia. So now that it was cut, and the supply became endangered, prices also have risen. So this means, why is this important? When energy prices rise, this means that the industry also needs to raise prices of products that is selling to the market, and this ultimately affects the final consumer. And the well-being of the final consumer is ultimately the well-being of the country as a whole. This is why the topic of energy is ultimately so important. Bulgaria has natural resources that it can use, but it is not enough to fulfill 100% of our needs. We rely until now for 60% on coal still, although we have 16% of renewable energy, which is a great percent to begin with. But still, it is definitely not enough to supply our economic needs. And our geographical situation and lack of connection with other suppliers than Russia put Bulgaria in a really dependent position. Similarly, Korea, a country almost the same size, cannot satisfy its own internal energy demand and without external supplier, as its resources are even scarcer than Bulgaria's. Its geographical situation isn't really benevolent either, as it's relatively separated from major lines of energy interconnectedness. So this is why the parallel between Korea and Bulgaria is so interesting, because our size is almost the same, although our economic situation is quite different. But because of those 60% of coal that we use for our economy, this makes our economy quite demanding on energy. And Korea's economy is also quite demanding on energy. So there are some differences in our situation, but in the meantime, the same challenges that we're facing in foreign policy. While searching for solutions for this supply crisis, talks about nuclear energy usage and eventual reconsideration of the speed with which the green transition of the economy is happening started gaining force anew. Ultimately, the green transition is the core of Europe's values, and decarbonization of the economy remained a main topic in the European agenda and a priority. So we can see that in the recovery and resilience plans that we adopted in Europe, and also in the programs such as Fit for 55, as most of you know, that aim to reduce 55% of the greenhouse emissions in Europe, we can see that the approach has been the same. There is no major shift. Although in Korea we can observe a swift shift in the policy with the renewal of talks of nuclear energy, still the core value and the international core value is to continue on the road to green transition, to reduce the emissions, and to optimize our energy usage. Such plans for green transitions are long-term and long-lasting, but also determine the European approach in how we handle the energy supply crisis. The conclusion is that we should try to handle it as green as possible. Therefore, because finding new suppliers and building regional electric interconnectedness or even further development of the existing renewable energy infrastructures are all strategies that are really long-term and require a lot of effort, a lot of time, and a lot of investment. Focusing on them now will bring benefits in the future, but not short-term benefits. So focusing on bettering our energy efficiency could be a short-term measure that can bring imminent results and also last a long time after the initial great investment. Therefore, my point is that while we pursue those long-term strategies, we should focus on energy efficiency and our energy consumption as an alternative way to manage the energy supply crisis, utilize our resources in a smarter way, while expecting some kind of alleviating result from these kind of policies. Korea can offer many good practices in the field of energy consumption. For both Europe and Korea, smart cities represent a great interest as a way to alter energy consumption. While Europe is still taking steady but still small steps in this direction, Korea is a pioneer in this sphere. As you can see here, cities consume over 65% of the world's energy and account for more than 70% of the global emissions. Therefore, an effective management of energy consumption in big cities can help decrease emissions and, in accordance with the green transition targets, also help us to have less consumption and more mindful consumption, resulting in less electric bills for both families and municipalities. Korea has created its own national plan for smart city development and smart cities initiatives that dates from decades ago. First, it began with digitalization, and then it focused more on the green transition, ultimately finding the best balance for the Korean model of smart cities. And Korea has long been developing on this path. The Act on Promotion of Smart Cities Development and Industry from 2018 gives an open definition of what a smart city is. It allows for municipalities to forge their own way and project on individual basis. I am saying this because Korea has a long history in forging laws and initiatives and projects in the field of smart cities, and also forging its own definition of what a smart city is. While this is something that Bulgaria is still stepping on and Europe as a whole is still stepping on, To ensure the level of smart city development on the other side, the smart city certification system evaluates the city and concludes which one can be called smart cities for real. Therefore, Korea offers an open definition of smart cities, but in the meantime has its own requirements for cities to be considered smart, and depending on the features that they have, at what level are they considered smart cities. The certification system ensures continuous efforts of the cities to maintain and develop their progress because it is reviewed every 2 years. So it is in the interest of municipalities to continue with their projects and level up in the smart city certification system. So again, this is a working system that has already started in Korea and is a way that is pushing municipalities to actively participate in programs that are on a national level, something that is currently missing in Bulgaria. Bulgaria has adopted a national energy efficiency action plan, but currently does not have a definition for smart cities, as already mentioned, or any concrete requirements for such classification. There is a strategy for the implementation of features relevant for smart cities within the National Recovery and Resilience Plan. This, however, doesn't guarantee the proper implementation of smart city urbanization. While some Bulgarian cities were chosen to be part of the EU initiative 100 Smart Cities, it is only the beginning, and there is no concrete structure or point of contact for the cities domestically to ensure the swift implementation of smart city programs. What this means is that although those cities were selected to participate in the program, they're still very much on their own without a working system in the country that can ensure the connectedness and cooperation on a national and city level. While the National Recovery and Resilience Plan contains a version of smart city features such as solar panels and zero energy buildings, there is still a lot of space for improvement. And what I mean by that is that we are focusing on the basic features of smart cities because we are still in the beginning of this road, while Korea has already built some of this. It already has the capacity in the mentioned solar panels, zero energy buildings, and so on, and is currently exploring many other ways to reinforce what has currently been built. Based on the pre-existing Korean programs, the recommendations for developing smart cities in Bulgaria are the following: short-term alleviating measures and reachable targets such as smart city lights, zero energy buildings, and institutional structure for handling smart city development projects. As already mentioned, smart street lights are such a simple thing that we can invest in, but at the same time it can actually reduce the municipality's costs and even family households' costs by at least 50%. Smart city lights are a crucial aspect to cut the municipality's energy expenses, and it steps on an already existing guideline on the operation of street lights and the basic plan on energy use rationalization. So when it comes to smart street lights, it's not only about technology, it's also about existing projects on city level that Bulgaria can find inspiration in and put on a local level. Seoul City adopted a mid and long-term plan on improving LED lighting, and the envisioned system reduces around 20 to 50% of the used light, and it can save up to 90% of the energy consumed by regular lights, which is a lot. Another alleviating measure is zero energy building. The building sector is one of the largest contributors to the total energy consumption. The third energy master plan in Korea sets a target to reduce energy intensity of buildings by 38% in 2040. The Green Building Construction Act presents building policies like energy-saving designs, and the second national plan for the green buildings tightens their consumption standards. It is envisioned that big public buildings have to become zero energy consuming according to the zero energy construction roadmap. So again, we see that there are many documents that lay the basics for further development of such kind of policy. In Bulgaria, this is the baby step was already taken in the recovery and resilience plan that was recently adopted. So a really large percent of the financing in the recovery and resilience plan is going for the green transition and buildings as well. This is an extremely important feature for the Bulgarian side because most of the Bulgarian buildings are really old. They are more than 50 years old until now because most of the Bulgarian infrastructure was created during the socialist era. And this is interesting because Korea has similarly the same problem. Most of the buildings are at least 20 years old, and there is continuing effort to redevelop certain areas with buildings that no longer meet the energy criteria and efficiency criteria. And I think Bulgaria can take a lot from the Korean initiative because it has been very successful until now. However, we did introduce a refurbishment program for old buildings, but a steady plan and more investments are needed. Lastly, from here, as already mentioned, institutional structure is crucial for the development of smart cities and should be created in Bulgaria using already existing models like the Korean one. And long-term measures. Why I have divided it into short-term and long-term measures. The idea of this paper was to present some short-term measures that can be implemented now and we can see the results in 1 or 2 years because the most difficult winters are yet to come. This one is expected to be a hard one, but maybe the one in 2024 or 2025 will be even harder to manage in economic and energy context. So by investing now in those kind of short-term alleviating measures, we can expect a lesser degree of tough winter in 2024 and 2025. However, if we are on the road to smart city development, inevitably we need to invest in long-term measures, because if you want to create a really functioning smart city, then we need more investment for smart grids and regulation of the energy market. Ultimately, all the measures that we short-term are going to invest in should build the road to the long-term measures, which we can see here. Smart grids are electric grids that allow for decentralized power supply system and increased consumption of renewable energy. It gathers real-time information and the demand response, and it shows the demand and the response while enabling customers to track their energy availability and make conscious consumption decisions. By the end of the day, the idea of proper energy consumption is for the final consumer to make a decision for himself and to be able to control his consumption, but also to help the final consumer to become part of the system as something more like a prosumer, as it's said. Because what actually smart grids represents are a way for those solar panels that we are going to put on buildings, like in the short-term alleviating measures as we saw, for them to be able to generate energy that later can be given to other buildings that need that energy but do not have it. So this can be possible only by a smart grid, because the one offering the energy in this case is not the main supplier. And lastly, further regulation on the energy market is needed for all of this to happen. The stakeholders' roles are changing, and the future incorporation of smart grids and green energy consumers, where they become partially producers, as already said. The Korean government has recognized that regulatory reform is necessary for the for commercialization of the market, but neither Korea nor Bulgaria currently have any effective legislation, making it a potential area for future collaboration and practice exchange. And the conclusion of the smart city measure is that the smart city measures can effectively alleviate the energy supply crisis, and their development should be further emphasized in the national program of Bulgaria and Korea, although there have been some changes in the current talks. Bulgaria can learn a lot from Korea's know-how, while Korea can use its technological advance in the area and possible collaboration with other countries, such as Bulgaria, to establish an international positive image of itself in the field of green transition, and maybe impose the Korean type of smart city, ultimately enlarging its soft power and image as technology exporter in Europe. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Diana, for underlying the fact that economic obstacles are coming from energy supply, and we need to find smart solutions for overcoming those challenges. And thank you for also dividing your recommendations into short-term steps and long-term strategies that need to be implemented. Without any doubt, smart cities are the future. So also thank you for bringing this up. And now I'm very much looking for welcoming you to the next topic that is related to the challenges of aging populations and providing policy recommendations from a developed to developing country. Bulgaria has been ranked 4th in the world for its rate of population aging. So without any doubt, Bulgaria is facing a big problem in the upcoming years. Also, South Korea is also going through its challenges in this area. So Slavina Vasileva, who is from the first cohort of fellows, is addressing this topic together with Chanjung Lee, who is assistant professor at the Department of Media and Social Informatics from Hanyang University. Slovenia holds a master degree in law and also a second master degree in technology, management, economics, and policy program from the Seoul National University. So very much looking forward to your presentation, Slavina, and Dr. Chanjung Lee, please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Milena. Thank you for this introduction. Just a brief introduction of my colleague, Changjun Lee. He's my colleague since 2014, when he actually became my sombe, because I've just joined the Seoul National University, and since then I'm learning a lot from him, especially on this topic. He is very knowledgeable, and he's supporting us, and this is something that I was trying to enforce since the first year I joined the fellowship. Collaboration and joint work of Korean fellows and Bulgarian fellows, so we can bring both together in both countries in a proper table, to say, where we can discuss topics that are interesting for both countries. So on the aging populations, both countries, as you already mentioned, are experiencing very big difficulties, to say, as both countries are declining in population on year basis. Just a brief. Okay. You can see my screen, right?
No. Not yet.
Ah, that's shame, because I was hoping you see it. Okay.
Maybe while we do that, if Chang, I think now it's loading. Yes, we
Yeah,
can
okay.
see.
Okay. Okay. So, as I said, there is a constant decline in the population of both countries, and on this brief presentation here we can see the numbers that are declining every year. For Bulgaria, this year census is saying a little bit more than 6 million people, while in Korea it's a little bit more than 51 million people, but they're declining constantly. In Korea, probably the reason for that is the lifespan is increasing, but this is going along with a low fertility rate, while in Bulgaria, since the political changes in 1989, the decrease is happening constantly, and it's not a reversible point. All the policies the Bulgarian government is suggesting is actually pointing to withhold the stage, but not to increase the birth rate, because this seems impossible for the country. And while we were doing this paper, this research, we were facing some papers saying that probably the strive is not only to add years to life, what Korea actually already has done, but also to add some life to the years that you are embodying for yourself. Because worldly, the policy is that you're increasing the retirement age for the people, so you can maintain older people working to just make the gap for the working force of the country, and then you're just stealing from their good years when they can enjoy life. And this is something that both countries, Bulgaria and Korea, will face in the future. Increase of the workforce. We don't have enough people to do the jobs, to do the work, just because we don't have enough births for that. Okay. Too much. So briefly, if we look into the policies that the both countries implemented throughout the years, from right to left, you can see Korea, in the 80s, they introduced the policies of only one child. Let's have one child and let's raise 12. And then they realized that this is not actually a good policy because of the decrease of the population. So they started policies encouraging the childbirth. Actually, the Korean society is bombarded by articles, by advertisements for large family that is doing something altogether in nature, in the city, and trying to make it interesting for the people. While this advertisement is very harsh, Korean women specifically are feeling a lot of pressure. They feel pressurized by the government. This is not something that the government is doing for our sake. It's something that the government is doing for their own sake, for the workforce only. And they are seeing us as some tool just to provide the workforce. So there is psychological enforcement on the Korean people that they're not happy with. And then hearing the voices of Koreans, the government actually introduced a plan to promote mostly the life quality, and they're focused on improving the life quality while they're trying to increase the number of births. In Bulgaria, from right to the left, you can see what was the trend. Before the political changes, Bulgaria was in constant increase of the births, and the population was rising around 9 million people. Then after the political changes, constant decline is observed, reaching now around 6 million people in the country. And the explanation of the people is that constant political changes and economical changes and economical insecurities actually leading to their thinking in the way, I will wait for better times to come, then I will have children, which is, one of the reasons we are having less and less children over the years. Unfortunately, looking into the statistics, you can see that for every year we are having less and less births, we are having more and more deaths, especially now in the post-COVID area. This is a huge problem for both countries, but it's very, very foreseeable for Bulgaria, especially if you look in here, we have even negative growth annual on the population, while at least Korea for the past 2 years is keeping it positive. For year 2021, they're also reaching the negative trend, which is really alarming and which is really disturbing. So what can be the reasons for that kind of fertility rate going down? Postponement of life events such as starting a family and giving birth, and then retiring in a good life situation, instead of that working to an older age is actually something that is influencing the way of living. And again, I'm saying Korea realized that the society is not happy about it, and they're introducing a plan and policy to change that and to support people into pursuing their life-work balance and their life to be a good quality life, not only focused on work and improvement of the Korean development miracle. Fertility rate for Bulgaria is still above 1 for this year, which is very impressive, but still it's declining. It used to be 3, now it's 1.5 for Korea as well. It was above 3, now it's 0.8, and it's going to drop down if you can rely on the statistical predictions. From the births happened in 2021, a little bit more than 50,000 happened in Bulgaria. 40% of the births are happening in a family of married people, while the rest are happening in single parenting houses. In Korea, where there is no such ethnical diversity and where there is a very strong culture of family and family consolidations and formations, 92% of the births are happening within the family, and there is not really official statistics on the births that are happening outside of marriage, but they're a little bit more than 20,000, which is something that Korean government, in my understanding, should foresee and should check and look into, because they're placing huge societal stigmatization over people who are raising their children alone. They're not supporting single mothers, and the trend of the family's formation in Korea is changing. Most recent years, Koreans are not starting a family. They're not looking into having a family of 2 or 3 just because of the economical burden. And if somebody is actually willing to have family and start family, even as a single parent, I believe the Korean government should support that, and Korean society should have an open mind to a single parents, as they can bring really value to life in Korea and to Korean development. This trend is just again facing the change in Bulgarian mindset. In the 60s, in the 70s, single parenting and not marriages wasn't so popular, but this was increasing from 8% to 68% within the couple of decades. And now we have a large number of population who are not married, but they're still having children, which doesn't influence so much the the education or the way the children are raised, it's not a problem. So this is something that I would advise Korean to be more open to having single parenting and have support for such out of wedlock births. Okay, so here on this one we can see the live births for the last year are declining for both countries, a little bit more than 50,000 in Bulgaria, a little bit more than 260,000 in Korea. Fertility rate dropping, mortality increasing. Compared to the previous year, in Bulgaria it's raising the mortality with around 20%, in Korea is raising with around 4%. And on the right side, you can see the distribution of the gender of the population. In Korea is barely equal, 50-50 male to female. In Bulgaria is a little bit less male than females. Yeah, and something that I really want to have a look into, because I will discuss it in my policy recommendation, is the childbirth leave that both countries implemented. In Bulgaria, the childbirth leave can be shared and can be distributed between the mother and the father. In Korea, at the moment, the father has more paid leave than in Bulgaria. And both countries, according to the service we review in our paper, are viewing that fathers should be included into the raising of child more and more, and mothers are expecting more support from their husbands or their partners than they used to receive in the past. Mothers are also viewed and also are requiring to be included into breastbearing, meaning that they're willing to have work. They don't want to stay at home. They don't want to just raise kids. They just want to go into the workforce. They want to work. They want to support the family financially as well. But along with that, they would like the fathers to support the child rearing, the care of the child.
Slavina, I'm sorry for interrupting you, but due to time constraints, I would like to ask you to keep the time. Thank you.
I am. I'm very quick on this one. Just the recommendations I have, they're facing three different types of people. The first one is the young people that are about to start a family, so financial support, but here I'm raising a point for the educational bar, which is very important, as educated women tend not to start a family and not to give birth. So if an educated woman receives support, I believe this can increase the interest of the woman to give a birth. Then the single mothers in Korea, unfortunately, are not receiving IVF treatments, where sometimes this can be a problem for a person willing to have a child. And then something that we have to take in consideration from Canada, educated immigrants. Canada has similar problems as most of the world, decrease of the population, but they're inviting educated immigrants and they don't have any problem with the workforce at the moment. So the next policies that I am suggesting for married and cohabitating couples, as I'm making point here into dividing Korea from Bulgaria, where only married in Korea and mostly cohabitating in Bulgaria, share of the child care between the father and the mother, workplace returning, because mostly Korean women are afraid that if they leave a job now to give a birth, they will not return into the job, they will not be accepted. This is again societal exclusion that they get there. Family health care, which is very, very important. We should be able to support people who want to start a family, who wants to have kids, with all the possible health care treatments, IVF, and whatever needed. Then again, multi-births should be with educational bar. If you have many children born into a family, it's better that this family is educated and you are supporting their education and their financially, so they can raise educated and well-behaved children, and they're enlarging it. And then the housing support, of course, as it is important where you live and where you raise your children, it's very important that the government is providing you with financial support to have housing, so you're not burdened by that. And for the seniors, I'm suggesting couple of policies that can be implemented, mostly are already implemented in Korea. the medical care and support are great in Korea. This can be seen by the expectancy of life, that in Korea is over 80 years, and in Bulgaria is over 70, so it's 10 years difference. The life expectancy is coming from the health support we are receiving. Then the physical exercise system, which is not very spread in Bulgaria, but it's widely spread in Korea, where elderly people can just go out in the parks and in the gardens between the buildings, and they can exercise, slight exercise, so they can keep their body strong and their heart strong. And then something on the financial side of things, promotion of jobs and part jobs, because for an elderly person, probably it's not very appropriate to work 8 hours a day, but he can do 4 hours a day. So this should be implemented, and this should be accepted and enforced by the employers. And what is very important, and this is a little bit a nudge also from the joke side, culture of respect from youngers to olders, and probably creating groups for national dances, which we have in Bulgaria. It's called horo. It's a very traditional dance, something that brings together people of different ages, so the age doesn't matter, and the elderly people can feel included, something that Korean elderly people are raising as a question. We feel excluded because nobody wants us. We want the elderly people. We can learn a lot from them, and we can embrace them, and we can work together. So this is the closing of the presentation. And just one last point. I'm very pleased that Changjung is doing this paper with me, because he is a very bright example of a father of a big family. He is a father of 3. And probably he has his reasoning in the policies coming from the Korean government why he has 3 children instead of only 1 or 2. Thank you all for your attention.
Thank you very much to both of you. If Changjung Lee wants to say something, share something, he might take the floor.
I'm also very pleased to have you guys, and also working with Lavina, and hearing all the presentation from this forum it's always, just very resourceful and very good idea I can get. So maybe I can also hopefully just to participate as long as I can. So okay, so the comment is not that, just a few things I wanna mention, because back then in 1970 and 80s we had a slogan like, let's have 1 kid, right? But now is and then 10 years later 2 is enough. But now everybody doesn't want to have a kid. So because what is that? And actually the government has poured a tremendous trillions of dollars to overcome the low birth rate, but it doesn't work well, because the foundation problem is not solved. So maybe supporting for 3 or more children is concentrated in the lower income group, because but low income group people are unlikely to have the intention of having like more than 3, right? So maybe I wonder what it would be like to expand support for the multiple children to the middle class, right? Because middle class is maybe people start thinking like, okay, middle class is enough to care 3 or more, but actually they cannot. Just for everybody, raising a kid is very challenging. So maybe the policy focusing is now has to focus more on the kind of middle class, that they can have more kids. Then maybe we can overcome this kind of, because just yes, I know, yeah, cohabitors and no marital couples can have a kid, but maybe more likely to have a kid is that marital couple, right? Marital couple in middle class can have 2 or 3 or multiple, right? So maybe we can pour more kind of support the that zone, then that can make maybe some change or shake some landscape in kind of this low birth rate worldwide. Okay, so that's just one comment, and I hopefully we can together overcome this situation all together. Yes, yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much as well, and thank you for this statement that we need to find common solution to the demographic problems that we are all facing, because this is the future of our world and our nations. Thank you very much once again, and with this, unfortunately time flies, but I would like to ask for your patience because we have one more very interesting discussion to cover, and the topic is Resolving Gender Clash in Korea by Margarita Kichukova. She was last year's fellow. She holds a bachelor degree in Korean studies from Sofia University and also a master degree in political science from the Academy of Korean Studies. And I would like to give you the floor, Margarita, for your presentation.
Hello, everyone. I will share my screen now. Can you see it?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you so much for introducing me, and thank you for inviting me as a presenter for a second year. Last year, similar to Denise and Anita, I was a fellow, and today my role is a little bit different because I will be presenting a discussion paper.
Margarita, before we continue, could you just put it on full screen, please?
Yep.
Yeah, thank you.
So last year I chose a topic in which Bulgaria could learn from Korea, but this time I decided to focus on the opposite. So I chose a problem which currently is a hot issue in Korea, namely resolving gender clash in Korea. And I will be talking about its historical background, recent conflicts, and possible solutions. The possible solutions you will see soon are based on Bulgarian examples. And without further ado, since we are a little behind on schedule, I will start my presentation. So I will briefly go over my main discussion points. If you see my paper, I start with a historical background, arguing that the unhealthy gender dynamic in Korea can be traced back to the Joseon dynasty, which adopted Confucianism as a state ideology. And you will see in the next slide what kind of Confucianist legacy I am discussing in detail. After the historical background, this discussion paper also provides a media analysis concerning the current political situation in Korea. As you know, the current President Yoon has been accused of being an anti-feminist and promoting anti-feminist ideas. So I will go over some media outlets, and I will briefly explain the current political situation in the country. So to resolve this gender clash, my paper introduces successful examples from Bulgaria, which ranks high in numerous statistics about women in the workspace. So about the historical background that I mentioned earlier, as you probably know, Confucian ideology was predominant in this region, in China, Japan, Korea, Vietnam, and several other countries in East Asia. So in Korea in particular, the Confucian norms during the Joseon dynasty are quite strong, and I will mention some of the most important social changes caused by this. So due to the Confucianism as a main ideology, very strong emphasis was placed on the birth of a son, especially the firstborn son who would later be inheriting continuing the family lineage. In contrast, girls were seen as children that would later move on to their parents' house, and they were not considered as important as sons. There was also a very strong division of family roles, as women are traditionally seen as mothers and housewives, while men were the breadwinners. Therefore, women had limited access to education or any working rights. This was applied also to the higher class of noble people as well, not only the middle class. However, in recent years, this is starting to change due to several factors, such as Christianization or overall Westernization of Korea, industrialization, and economic growth. However, despite the changes, there is still a very strong patriarchal legacy, which causes certain negative impacts in the Korean society. On the slide, you can see a graphic by OECD, which shows the wage gap between men and women in different countries. South Korea is one of the leading countries by this indicator, with a wage gap of more than 30%. So, as we already mentioned in the previous presentation, there is discrimination at the workplace. As it was mentioned before, some women are afraid that they won't be able to be returning to their workplace after giving birth. And also, this type of discrimination has various aspects, such as wage gap or also job recruitment discrimination, during which women are not considered suitable candidates for job positions, as they might end up pregnant and won't be able to return at their position. Not only this, but there are high rates of crimes against women, especially sexual violations. And this has been growing to new dimensions in recent years due to the country's technological advancement. There are cases of not only physical sexual violations, but also cyber sex crimes. In my paper, I mentioned several recent cases, including the Ant Room, which was a massive scandal of crimes against women, which took place online, and a large number of Korean online users, mostly male, took part in these online rooms, which were pretty much created so members of the rooms could violate and assault women online. There are also double standards in the entertainment industry, which I also address in the paper. For example, there have been cases of like scandals in the media involving actors and singers, in which female singers and female entertainers have been penalized and criticized more harshly for their behavior compared to like male members of groups. So I think I will cover the next slide, and if you have any questions about this, I will address them in the discussion. To briefly go over the timeline and milestones addressed in my paper, there is the new constitution, actually the constitution of 1948, according to which women are equal in rights with men. However, some of the family laws from that period proved to be unjust, and in 1991 we have very important amendments to the family law which allow women to have basic human rights, such as they are allowed inheritance of property, and they are also allowed to take care of their children in case of a divorce or separation. In 2001, we have a very important milestone for women's rights and gender equality, which is the establishment of the Ministry of Gender Equality and Family. And in recent years, what was happening is that in 2017, we have the inauguration ceremony of President Moon Jae-in, who was self-declared as the nation's first feminist president. However, in next slides, I will go over the results of his campaign and if he actually made any progress for women in the country. And in 2022, we have the inauguration of the new president, Yoon Suk-yeol, in which campaign there were many problems concerning gender that were addressed by media and also policy analysts. To briefly go over the activities of the Ministry of Gender, Equality and Family, I will mention the following points. So the main agenda of this ministry is support of all women, youth, and families. As it was mentioned in the previous presentation, recently there has been several changes in the traditional family structure in Korea, such as the emergence of single-parent families, multicultural families, and also grand families. Grand family is a family in which the parents are not present and the grandparents are taking care of their grandchildren. So this ministry ensures that these new family structures are treated fairly. It is important to mention that the governance of youth and families has been transferred back and forth between this ministry and the Ministry of Health and Welfare. So this goes to prove that there has been previous attempts to redistribute the work of this ministry to other structures, but those has been proved more or less unsuccessful. And last but not least, this ministry, even though it's often seen as ministry exclusively for women, it's actually a gender inclusive. It has actually a gender inclusive position, as it provides support of male victims of sexual violence as well. So, despite the various activities and important roles of this ministry, the new president has vowed to abolish the Ministry of Gender Equality and Family, and he has deemed it unnecessary as a separate structure with a minister and vice ministers, and he has claimed that its role can be, as I mentioned, redistributed to other ministries, and its funding can also be used for supporting more important issues in the Korean society. However, let's go over the political campaign in the recent elections. So first, I mentioned the administration of the previous president, Moon Jae-in, who declared himself to be a feminist and who promised that he would secure gender equality and more opportunities for women in the Korean society. This happened in 2017, and I believe that the general public was positive about his promise. But 3 years into Moon's rule, the gender pay gap in Korea still remains at 38%, and as mentioned before, it is quite high compared to other developed countries. So the Democratic Party, which was represented by Moon Jae-in, has in fact not made a very significant progress in the gender equality agenda. Not to mention, during the during the last presidential election campaign, the same party's candidate, Mr. Lee Jae-myung, he also stated that the madness of feminism had to be stopped, although later he changed his position.
Margarita?
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but could you please proceed towards the recommendations? And if you find something, of course, very important to share with us, feel free to do so, but please proceed.
Okay, I'll move on. I'll just mention the gender divide visible during this election campaign. So 58% of female voters in their 20s voted for Lee, and around the same number of male voters in their 20s voted for Yoon. So the gender divide was visible in the results of the elections as well. And I will move on to the exchange of good practices. So Bulgaria actually ranks quite well on the world scale in women-related indicators. So, for example, Bulgaria ranks first in the world in participation of women in the sector of communication and IT. Also, it has been ranked very high on various indicators such as mobility, work, pay, marriage, and parenthood. It also ranked fifth in terms of the largest share of women in boards of directors, in contrast to Korea, which surpassed the 5% mark this year for the first time. So some of the practices that I recommend are attraction and increased participation of women in the formation of public policies, equal pay regardless of gender, balanced policies in the field of gender equality, and policies in the field of creating a favorable environment for career growth of women. And last but not least, a favorable environment for the work and realization of women mothers. And to conclude, the traditional mentality of patriarchy is still deeply ingrained in Korean society, but this has been challenged by modernization and development, improvements in women's education, and changes in the family structure. These changes have been mostly positive, but more efforts are needed to ensure that women will have equal social status with men and their abilities will be judged by the same indicators. To do so, Korea can borrow successful practices from other regions, such as Bulgaria. And thank you for your attention. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer in the discussion session. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Margarita. Thank you, everybody, for the patience due to this slight delay in time. Actually, we have quite a few questions in Slido, and I would like to take some of your time just to give the floor to our presenters to answer to those questions that were already asked. And maybe we could start with Veronica. Because the first question is towards her paper, but maybe we could go first through the questions and see whether there is another question for her. The first is, are there examples of successful cooperation in the field of anti-corruption between Korea and other countries in Europe? Then we have a question related to the smart city certification, and are there certification criteria transferable to Bulgaria? The third question is, does decarbonization still enjoy the same priority in Korea these days given the overall peak in energy prices? Next question is related to are there public campaigns in Korea showcasing the economic and social losses from corruption that happened in parallel with the administrative reforms? So maybe this is also to Veronica. And then Bulgaria is growing old before growing rich, according to the World Bank. From that perspective, what recommendations the country can draw from rich countries, which is towards Slavina. And the last one, where does LGBTQ community stand in the clash of natural genders, which goes to Margarita. So please, first Veronica, please take the floor and answer the first and the fourth question. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me well?
Yes,
I
we
hope
can.
you can.
Yes, we can.
Okay. First, I will answer the first question on is there any successful cooperation between Korea and another European country? There is no information on cooperation between countries from the European Union, but there is successful cooperation between Korea and Montenegro in the field of anti-corruption. And this is because Montenegro has adopted and successfully implemented similar methodology as the one that I mentioned, anti-corruption initiative assessment. And in April this year, there has been a conference between Montenegro and the United Nations Policy Institute in Seoul. And on this conference, they have discussed the results of the implementation of the methodology and has showed which parts which indicators need improvement in Montenegro's anti-corruption policies, and which has achieved an improvement. And as long as I remember, the methodology has been applied to more than 30 institutions, which is, I think, a good number of institutions that have been externally evaluated. So I would say that this is a successful cooperation between Korea and a European country. And I hope I answered this question like this, I hope is enough as a good example of cooperation. And regarding the second question, are there any so economic and social losses from corruption that has happened in parallel with the administrative reforms? I have no certain information about showcasing the social losses from the corruption, because in my policy paper, I evaluated the efforts in Korea through the Transparency International Corruption Perception Index, which includes different indicators in order to place the country in the proper position and to receive the relative score. I really have to research more on showcasing economic losses relative to the implementation and realization of the anti-corruption policies, but since the results show gradual improvement according to Transparency International, which combines different indicators from different spheres of anti-corruption. I think this index could be credible enough to prove the improvement in Korea in anti-corruption, but I cannot say certainly about the showcased.
Thank you very much, Veronica.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm really tired. I'm really sorry.
Yeah, it's
the end of the day in Korea, and I'm sorry.
Thank you very much. I think you answered pretty clearly the two questions that were directed to you, and it's indeed very late in Korea, but thank you for staying with us. And now concerning the second question, please, Diana, you have the floor very briefly about Smart City certification.
Yes, so first of all, there are a few main actors. When it comes to smart cities, it's mainly the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure and Transport, the Smart City Special Committee to the Presidential Commission, Korea Agency for Infrastructure, and Smart City Synergy Alliance. The last one is an organization from the private sector which cooperates with municipalities. When it comes to the certification system, as already mentioned, it's handled by the first and main actor, which is the Ministry of Land and Infrastructure. And as already mentioned, it's a way to make cities move and continue their efforts with different smart city projects. So Ministry of Land and Infrastructure is handling the smart city certification in order to maintain a certain level of quality, because not every city can call itself smart city if the requirements aren't met. The question if the criteria is transferable to Bulgaria, maybe not in its full force, because the level in which smart cities are evaluated in Korea, it's quite different. They have different generations of smart cities to begin with. As already mentioned, their policies date from decades ago, first starting with urbanization for like internet and then moving to green transition and so on. So some cities were digitalized but not green. So here comes the discrepancy. Which city is smart? Should it be green and digitalized, or only one of both? So Bulgaria should focus on some basic requirements that it can transfer, not all 63 requirements, and establish its own level for identifying smart cities. I hope this answers your question.
Thank you very much. I think the next question is already also for you. Does decarbonization still enjoys the same priority in Korea these days, given the overall peak in energy prices?
Again, to me, yes, decarbonization is still the mainstone in the European dialogue, and when it comes to Korea, however, there are some slight risks to the topic falling behind to other topics. As already mentioned, talks about nuclear energy are on the rise in Korea, and there is a shift in the Korean policy towards it. This is because of the war in Ukraine and the supply crisis. Nuclear energy is a solid way to answer the crisis. However, this raises some concerns about investments, because renewable energy, and renewable energy is crucial to smart cities, needs large investments. But those investments, if they are directed to another sector like nuclear energy, this may hurdle the development in the field of renewable energy, and therefore in the field of smart technology for smart cities. So although because of the Paris Agreement and all the international pressure for the green transition, although the green transition and decarbonization of the economy is still a major topic both in Korea and in Bulgaria, it might suffer some drawbacks in Korea.
Thank you very much, Diana. Now, Slavina, could you please very briefly, based on your presentation, just answer the question whether you can draw some recommendations for Bulgaria from the Korean perspective?
I may take in. So on the behalf of our presentation, maybe. About the question, actually, South Korea likewise faced a serious low birth rate crisis before it could fully grow as well. So I think this is not just Bulgaria's case, I think, but also the case in China and other countries as well. So if the low birth rate cannot be mitigated, I hope we really can, but if we cannot, then I think the answer can be found in the fact that the United States and also Australia actively allowed immigration of highly educated or very skilled people who can actually maximize the productivity in the early or the middle stages of growth. So some people maybe some hurt, just maybe hurt by selective immigration, but the proportion between the just immigration and also skilled immigration, the proportion needs to be adjusted to overcome the growth, like stuck in the middle issue. Just we always need to some kind of breakthrough for the just continuously growth in a nationwide. Then maybe we need to decide to how to accept immigration, and just a national agreement has to be made. That is the maybe the answer when for now in this stage, I think. Yeah.
Thank you very much for this new perspective and valuable answer to the question. And last but not least, Margarita, could you please elaborate a bit more about the involvement of the LGBTQ community and where it stands?
Thank you for the interesting question. Actually, I'm not sure how the person who asked the question, how well familiar they are with South Korea's stance on gender and queer people in general, but I'll try to cover the basics. So first of all, the legal system in Korea is strictly based on binary genders, meaning that they recognize men and women as the two actual genders in the legal sphere. So while it is not illegal to be gay or queer in Korea, those kind of people, they face a lot of discrimination, and that is due to the fact that in Korea, basically, there are little to non-discrimination laws. So similar to the discrimination of women in the workplace that I mentioned earlier, there are no laws that could help queer people fight the discrimination in job recruitment or in the workplace in general. And there have been a lot of problems concerning gay people or transgender people in the military, because as you know, in Korea, biological males are required to do the military service. So recently there was actually case in which a transgender soldier was found dead after facing discrimination in the military. So this raised the question of the place of LGBTQ plus people in the society. But legally, I believe that there hasn't been much changes in recent years. The society overall remains conservative on that matter. And if you have more questions or if you want to read the details, I will paste a link to academic paper that covers the South Korean gender system in the context of family, legal identity, and the military. It's quite a long paper because this issue is quite interesting, especially for foreign scholars. So I will paste it here in the chat, and I hope that you can have access to it. You can read the details there. And if you have any more detailed questions, I can try to answer.
Thank you very much, Margarita, also for providing this paper. And I think this was the last question in Slido. Thank you very much for your patience. It was a great pleasure for me to be moderator of this panel, which introduced good practices and exchange of opportunities, not only from Korea to Bulgaria, but also a transfer of good practices back from Bulgaria to Korea. I think it was a very good mix. And with this, I would like to give the floor to Yasin Georgiev, the Executive Director of the Institute, for giving the certificates to this year's Next Generation Korean Fellows. And please, Diana.
So at the very end, before we go to the well-deserved lunch, I would like to hand over the certificate to Diana Parapanova, who being one of our 3 fellows this year. It is great that she participated also because of the fact that she elaborated on a topic that deals with energy. And for this reason, it's a very timely topic, and it was a privilege for me because I was the mentor of Diana. So Diana, thank you very much for the successful cooperation. And last but not least, since our third fellow, Veronika Marjanova, is not physically with us, I would like to ask her sister to come in front and to be the legal representative of Veronika, to take our gratitude and our certificate for this very vivid cooperation on a topic that is of mutual interest for Bulgaria and Korea. And maybe the final words will be said by my colleague Mariana, the mentor and the intellectual driver of this effort.
Thank you so much, Yasin. Once again, thank you everybody who made this possible, for all our fantastic Next Generation Korea Fellows, our alumni community, all the mentors, my colleagues at EPI, the technical team who is supporting us today, of course, our partners from Korea Foundation and the Embassy of the Republic of Korea in Bulgaria, and last but certainly not least, to everybody who attended live here at the venue and online via Zoom, because this is the actual point of this exercise, to get people to meet and to discuss together, to exchange ideas. For us, it is truly a pleasure to continue to be doing this project. We will be publishing in the next few weeks all the papers that will be available on our website, and also there will be a hard copy publication from the forum with some excerpts and main takeaways. So please stay tuned for that. If you have subscribed to receive further information from us, you'll also be receiving these publications online. We also invite you to follow us through our social media channels where there will be coverage of the event. With this in mind, I once again thank you all. Good evening. I would like to wish a good evening and good night actually to everybody in Korea who stayed until very, very late to participate in this session. And I'm really proud to see that there were so many questions in the follow-up discussion. And those of you here at the venue, you're most welcome to join us for lunch at the restaurant downstairs, where we will continue the informal networking. Once again, wishing you a lovely, lovely Friday afternoon or evening in Bulgaria and Korea, and we look forward to further meetings with you. Thank you so much.